This old side-by-side hammer shotgun has got a long history of use. It's been in the family or a family for generations. I received it from a friend though. He didn't know what to do with it, and to him it was just scrap. He received it from a very old farmer that was retiring. He'd been in this farmer's family for generations. He'd received it from his father, and his father had received it from his father, and I'm not quite sure of any history before that. So it is quite an old one. Much loved by the old gentleman. Polished, all the bluing or perhaps blacking even has been totally removed. It's down to the bare metal. Old woodwork. There isn't a catch that you can easily remove the fore end. You have to knock out a wedge. Surprisingly, through all the use, the hinge part, the action still locks up quite solidly, and it's quite tight on the hinge. No play at all really. And the engraving, although very worn, it does show the craftsmanship, the skill and the care and attention to detail that was passed on this gun, used on this gun when it was first made. Old hammers. This one's broken. Certainly must have caused a sore thumb to use it, and it's the first trigger barrel that fired, and the barrel itself is worn quite thin. It's a double trigger, and although the hammer must have been very hard to operate, to open, to cock, if you want to call it that, it was still the favoured barrel to use. And you can see here the cracked stock. Well, I don't know if it was cracked, it might have even been totally broke. I can just imagine the farmer with an old oil lamp, whichever part of the generation of the family it was, I don't know, but I can just imagine using an old oil lamp in a dusty barn, a bit of brass sheet, a few screws, some pins, and making it to fit, a bit of old-fashioned craftsmanship, or even what you might call desperation, to make the gun still usable. The stock itself is quite battered, and in true old-fashioned terms, there's a screw top and bottom to hold a metal butt plate in place, and surprisingly for the age of the gun, there's very little damage to the stock. Bit of a dink there. I know there's the obvious breakage or crack, but considering the amount of use, and I would even say abuse, this gun has had, the stock does look, on the face of it, quite good. I've already mentioned the nice engraving, and this must have been a very basic tool for a farmer to start with, and yet it still had attention to detail. Engraving all the way around the trigger guard, and you'll notice this is an underlever gun, not an overlever. There's even engraving on the hammers, and top of the action. It's quite a nice gun. It's a shame it's so overused, or used as intended. You can tell this barrel is quite thin on the metal. I certainly wouldn't trust it to fire now, and yet strangely the farmer, right up until the last use of this gun, preferred to use this. Strangely enough, the story I was told, not only was this gun passed on to my friend, but also a brand new side-by-side shotgun, and that was quite old when that was passed on as well. And the new gun, not preferred to this one, was used to keep the fridge door shut. So the new gun it was just a tool for another purpose, and the old favourite just wanted to be used. Simple opening and closing mechanism, the under lever, it locks up quite solid. There's a little bit of play there, but compared to modern guns and the amount of use this has had, it's not bad going at all. The action part seems quite strong enough and solid enough to use. You can see the hinge that you have, the pin you have to knock out. Knock it from left to right, but it opens wide enough to get the cartridges out. There's no ejector, it just the extractor part, just enough to lift the cartridges out, and it opens just enough to get a cleaning rod down there. Function over form. Sadly, the old farmer, not having children to pass on this gun to, he couldn't pass on the history. Unfortunately, it must be lost. The walks along the hedgerows, for the odd rabbit for the pot, magpies, pigeons, crows, I think all fell victim to this gun. And no doubt, being a farmer, I dare say even the odd fox, they'll have to be persuaded not to go anywhere near the chickens. Who knows what the stories was. Normally the farmers, they tend to pass on the guns like this one was, and all the stories, all the frozen fingers, all the misses, all the good meals, all the wet feet, everything you could think of, it just ends right here. Unfortunately, I can't sit around and chat and pass on stories. I just don't know them. It's a bit sad to think, over all this time of using the gun with a broken hammer, with a broken stock, all the history that that involves is just now to be lost. Modern day people, it's just, oh dear, it's got a little bit dirty, I think I'll buy a new gun and throw the old one away. Not this one. It's sadly about to be scrapped, to be retired, maybe turned into a fresh gun, maybe turned into a car, a motorbike, I don't know. It's going to be recycled in some fashion, but here the story ends. There is one little job I have to do with this one though, and you'll no doubt see this later on. But for now, all I can do is just look at it, hold it. I even aimed with it a few times and just had a little thought to myself, what pleasure this gun must have given to the farmer, as well as being a tool, for it to be cherished like it has been, to be looked after, to be over polished, to be cared for, to be repaired, and even when broke, still used. Could you honestly see yourself doing this with any gun that you own at present? I personally wouldn't. I think it's a credit to the craftsmanship and the value that people held to that craftsmanship. I think it's a credit to this gun and the people that went anywhere near it, either with a tool or with ammunition. Time to say goodbye.